She was standing at the kitchen counter with 2 white candles in front of her and her hands trembling slightly. Not from age, she was only 53, but from the weight of what the week had been. The notice had come on Thursday. The account that had held the small reserve she had built over 18 months was down to a number she could not say aloud without her throat tightening. And yet here she was, Friday evening, pulling the matchbox from the drawer the way her mother had pulled it, the way her grandmother had pulled it before that, lighting the candles with the careful circular motion of the hands, covering her eyes and saying the blessing. Not because she felt abundant, not because she felt faith in that moment with any particular clarity, but because the tradition does not ask you to feel it before you do it. The tradition asks you to do it, and then the feeling follows. I was sitting at her table that evening. I had come for Shabbat. I had not known what she was carrying, and I watched her face as she finished the blessing. Something shifted, not dramatic, the way the air in a room shifts when a window is opened. You do not always hear it, but you feel the change. She sat down across from me and said, "I do not know why I still do this." And I said, "Because something in you knows that this is not a ritual. This is a transaction." She looked at me the way people look when I say something they have been reaching for without knowing what it was. My name is Rabbi Naomi, and I have spent more than 30 years watching what happens in the households where this blessing is said on Friday evening with full intention, and what happens in the households where it is not said at all, or said in the manner of someone reciting a bus schedule. Words without breath, form without life. The difference in the financial outcomes of these households over time is not subtle. It announces itself clearly across years and decades. What I am going to share with you is not the blessing itself. You may already know the words. What I am going to share is the specific spiritual mechanism behind the blessing that the ancient teachers encoded into it, and why that mechanism, when activated with full understanding, functions as what the Zohar calls a petihat sha'ar ha'osher, an opening of the gate of abundance that resets the financial frequency of your entire household every single week. But you must stay with me until the very end. The fourth element I will give you, the element most people skip entirely because they do not know it exists, is the difference between performing the ritual and activating the technology. Before we go further, type the words Shabbat Shalom in the comments right now, not as a greeting, as a declaration. In our tradition, these words, spoken intentionally, are themselves a form of invitation. You are telling the Shabbat Queen that you are ready to receive her. Type them now, then stay with me. There is an image I return to often when explaining why the Friday evening blessing is not merely a beautiful custom. Imagine a river, wide, generous, moving with a current strong enough to irrigate an entire valley. The river exists, the water flows, but if the channel that leads from the river to your land has not been opened, if the gate at the head of the irrigation ditch is closed, your field receives nothing, regardless of how full the river is. The abundance is not absent, the abundance is flowing. What is absent is the open channel between the source and the household that needs to receive it. The Jewish tradition teaches that Shabbat is not a day of rest in the way a machine rests when it is turned off, inert, waiting to resume. Shabbat is the day of the most concentrated spiritual flow in the entire week. The Zohar describes Friday evening as the moment when Shefa, divine overflow, the abundance that flows from the infinite source, pours into the created world with a fullness not available at any other point in the 7-day cycle. It pours whether or not you are ready to receive it. It pours whether or not your channel is open. And the Friday evening blessing, said in the specific way the tradition prescribes, is the act of opening the channel. Every Friday evening, a gate opens. Most households stand beside it without knowing it is there. The few who open it with full intention receive what is flowing. What flows is not always immediately visible in the bank account. Sometimes it arrives as an unexpected opportunity on Sunday. Sometimes as sudden clarity about a financial decision that has been murky for months. Sometimes as a phone call on Monday morning from a direction no one anticipated. What tends to follow in the households where I have watched this practice held with consistency over months and years is a quality of financial life that can only be described as accompanied. Not always comfortable, not always without difficulty, but accompanied, provision arriving when it is needed, sometimes with very little margin, but always with enough. I want to take you into what the tradition actually teaches about this blessing, not the surface, but the interior, the specific mechanics encoded into what looks, from the outside, like a simple two-sentence prayer spoken over two flames. I was 41 years old. It was a Friday evening in Jerusalem in the month of Cheshvan, that gray and quiet month between the intensity of the high holidays and the brightness of Hanukkah, a month of waiting, of things not yet visible. I had been lighting Shabbat candles since I was 12, nearly 30 years of Friday evenings, and I believed I understood what I was doing. Then a teacher of mine, a woman in her late 80s, a scholar of the Zoharic tradition who had studied with some of the last great Kabbalistic teachers of the previous generation, invited me to sit with her on a Friday evening and watch her light. I had seen people light candles 10,000 times. I sat down expecting nothing new. What I witnessed in the next 4 minutes changed every Friday evening I have had since. She stood before the candles for 60 to 90 seconds before she struck the match, still, eyes open, entirely present. I asked afterward what she was doing in that silence, and she said, "I am arriving." Most people light the candles while they are still in the week. I make sure I have left the week before I light. She struck the match with her right hand, moving from the candle on her right to the candle on her left. Then she drew the light toward her face with the circular motion of the hands, 3 times, not the common 2, and covered her eyes. In the darkness behind her hands, she was silent for a very long time. When I asked later what occurred in that silence, she said, "That is where the transaction happens. The blessing opens the gate. The silence behind the hands is when you walk through it. And the petition you place in that silence is what you carry through the gate into the week. Whatever you bring through in that moment is what the Shabbat disperses into the 6 days that follow." She paused and said, "Most people close their eyes and think about what to make for dinner." I did not laugh because I recognized myself entirely. For nearly 30 years I had been standing at the gate without knowing the gate was there. From that Shabbat forward my practice changed, and in the months that followed, I am not speaking of miracles, I am speaking of observable movement. The quality of financial accompaniment in my household changed in ways I cannot attribute to anything else I changed in that period. Now I want to give you the specific elements of the practice with the precision they deserve. There are 4. Each one is necessary. The first is hitkonanut, preparation, arrival. Before you approach the candles on Friday evening, you must make a deliberate internal transition from the week to the threshold of Shabbat. 60 seconds of stillness before you strike the match. You are not simply stopping your activity, you are consciously placing the week behind you. The worries, the unresolved financial tensions of the past 6 days. You are not resolving them, you are setting them down. Without this, what follows is form. With it, what follows is life. The second element is the direction of the lighting. Light the right candle first, then the left. In Kabbalistic understanding, the right side channels chesed, loving overflow, expansive abundance, and the left channels din, judgment, and boundary. The movement from right to left encodes the spiritual intention of Shabbat itself, abundance flowing into its proper vessel. Most people do not know this, and light in whichever direction their hand moves first. The direction matters. It is a physical act carrying a spiritual intention precisely, and that precision is the very definition of a sacred practice. The third element is the number of circular motions bringing the light toward the face. 3 times, not 2. The tradition of 3 draws on the Zoharic teaching that 3 circular movements correspond to the 3 times the word or, light, appears in the opening of Genesis in connection with the declaration that it is good. You are aligning your household with the 3 moments in creation when light was declared worthy of receiving the divine blessing. This is not small. The fourth element, the one my teacher called the place where the transaction happens, is the petition spoken inwardly in the silence behind the covered hands, after the blessing has been recited and before your hands come down. This silence is not filler. It is the interior of the gate, the space between the opening and the crossing. What you place there must be specific, not general gratitude, not a vague request for abundance. A specific named petition for one financial need, one financial door, one specific area of your household's material life where you are asking the Shabbat's Shefa to move. Not, I need more money. Name the specific thing, the business that needs a client, the debt that needs to move, the door that has been closed for months, the conversation that needs to go differently than all the conversations before it. Name it once, with full intention, in the silence behind your hands. Then release it. You are placing it at the gate and trusting that the gate is real and that what passes through it has somewhere to go. Then bring your hands down. Open your eyes. Say Shabbat Shalom and mean it as the completion of a transaction, not as a pleasantry. What this practice is and what it is not, I want to be honest with you. It is not a guarantee. The tradition does not deal in guarantees. It deals in alignment, in the opening of channels, in the creation of conditions that allow what is meant to reach you to actually arrive. I have seen this practice held with consistency and full intention over months produce financial movement that families could not attribute to any other specific change they had made. I have also seen it practiced incompletely, the candles lit, the blessing said, the hands covered, but the silence behind the hands spent in distraction, and in those cases the gate is approached but not entered. Form present, life absent. What I have shared today is one practice within the complete architecture of Shabbat as a weekly financial and spiritual reset. An architecture that includes the specific intention of the Friday evening meal, the words spoken over wine, the way the household is entered on Friday night, and the specific petition of Havdalah that the Kabbalistic tradition identifies as the most charged moment of the week for financial intention. The complete program, Kabbalat Shabbat Shel Shefa, the receiving of the Shabbat of abundance, is available through the link in the description. It is not a collection of prayers. It is a week-by-week architecture for making the Shabbat the living engine of your household's financial alignment. If today's teaching opens something in you, the complete system is there. Now let me prepare you for what comes next, because this is where most people misread the practice and abandon it too early. In the 24 hours following your first Friday evening with full intention, with arrival, the correct direction, the 3 movements, the named petition in the silence, you may feel, more than anything else, stillness. Not excitement, not immediate signs, stillness. The Zohar teaches that the Shabbat's Shefa does not announce its arrival with noise. It settles. Like light that has come through a window and filled the room, you do not hear it arrive, you simply find, after a moment, that the room is different. What follows, sometimes in the days of that week, sometimes in the week after, sometimes only visible across 3 or 4 weeks of consistent practice, is movement. Small at first. A door that opens when doors have been closed. A financial conversation that resolves more easily than previous ones of the same kind. A sense that something in the household has been adjusted. Hold the practice through this period. Do not assess after one Friday. Give it 4. 4 Friday evenings of full intention, full presence, full petition in the silence. Then look at the month that has passed and tell me what you see. I have asked this of many people over 30 years. I have yet to have anyone return and tell me they saw nothing. But here is the test that will come, because it always comes. In the first week or two after you begin, something will tighten. A bill will arrive. A plan will wobble. Everything in you will want to say, it is not working. This is not failure. This is the test of the vessel. The spiritual mechanics are asking whether you will hold the gate open under pressure or close it yourself in fear. Hold your position. Do not speak collapse over your own open gate. The shefa that has been set in motion does not stop because circumstances temporarily tighten. It continues. Your posture in those days determines whether you are standing in the path of what is coming or stepping out of it. What you carry out of this video today has accompanied Jewish households through the destruction of temples and the scattering of communities and the rebuilding of entire civilizations from nothing. And it has produced, in those households that held it with full intention, a quality of financial life that observers across history have struggled to explain by purely material means. Share this video with one person in your life who lights candles on Friday evening without knowing what they are holding in their hands. One person performing the form without yet knowing the life inside it. When you become the channel through which this wisdom reaches someone else, you multiply your own reception of it. This is not a metaphor. It is a spiritual law, the tradition states explicitly. Next week, I am going to reveal a teaching that the Talmudic sages embedded in the Saturday night Havdalah ceremony, a specific window that opens for only a few minutes at the end of Shabbat and then closes until the following week. Most people spend it checking their phones. I will show you exactly what to do with it instead. Subscribe now and turn the bell on. What is coming builds directly on what you received today, and the two teachings together form something complete that neither one forms alone. And if this teaching stirred something real in you, press the like button. This wisdom deserves to reach every household where someone is standing at the candles on Friday evening without yet knowing the full weight of what they hold. May your Friday evenings become what they have always been designed to be. Not the closing of a hard week, but the opening of an abundant one. May the gate find you standing before it with full presence and a named petition that the Shabbat carries forward into your week. May what you place in the silence behind your hands find its way into the light of what follows. Shalom.